Just when you thought it was safe to go outside.
It's the all new. To the all new.
The Rant with David King.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Rant. I am your host, David King. It's good to be back with you today on this Wednesday, the 8th. Special episode. We're going to talk about a movie. Actually, we're not talking about a movie. That is a oops on my part. We're talking about a TV show. I like this riff. I'm just going to let it play for a minute. This doesn't get you pumped up. Nothing will. Check your pulse. You may not have a heartbeat. Alrighty. Special episode today. We're going to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, it's no secret that this show has been out. It debuted back in May. There's 4 episodes out now. And it stars Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, Moses Ingram, Rupert Friend, Sung Kang, and many other folks, including Joel Edgerton as Owen Lars, and even Flea had an appearance. It's pretty cool. Kumail Nanjiani as Haja, he was in there as well, and there's a whole mess of other people. There's 4 episodes out now. You can watch it on Disney Plus, and I was going to do a review of this show after the first episode, which was technically 2 episodes. They released episode 1 and 2 on the same day. It was like a double premiere. Get ready for the double premiere of Kenobi with 2 episodes instead of just 1. You know, that would normally be like really cool, but now most streaming services just release the whole like series in one go. So really, when you only get 2 episodes, it's just like this is still annoying because I really just want to binge it. You know what I mean? Because here's the thing. This show, and I'm going to go back and watch the Book of Boba Fett again and see if my opinions change. Because if you haven't seen it already, we did a review of the Book of Boba Fett earlier this year. It was me and my brother-in-law and creator of Swampy and Fangs, John Autry. He joined me on that episode. Go back into the old episode list and you can find it. We broke down how we felt about the Book of Boba Fett, and we weren't very happy with it. I know most people weren't. The Rotten Tomatoes score for the Book of Boba Fett is 58% with the audience, 66% with the critics. And as of right now, I believe Kenobi is sitting right around 80% with the critics and 58%. Oh, so it's 88% with the critics and 58% with the audience. So that's kind of a telling. And I agree with that. I'm pretty bullish on all of that. On that score, 58%. This so far, like I said, I was going to do a review with the first 2 episodes and start from there and give my initial thoughts. But I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. And then episode 3 aired. And then it was like, yes, I'm going to do that now. But then I didn't have very much time. So we're starting with episode 4 now. So I am giving you this review. I have watched episode 4. If you have not watched episode 4 yet and you're looking forward to it, do not listen to this podcast any further. Turn it off and come back and listen later. And you can hear me talk about the series some more. So there will be spoilers. So, spoiler alert. Alrighty? Do not get mad at me if I ruin it for you. I've just warned you. So, my initial thoughts after episode 1, when I watched episode 1, I was actually like, hey, this is pretty interesting. You know, I have been a Star Wars fan since I was a kid. I remember, I remember when I was first introduced to Star Wars, my dad got the 3-box set, anniversary set VHS. It's the 3 movies all in that one single box with the 3 VHS tapes. And it was before Lucas modified it heavily and changed it. These were the original ones. I wonder if my dad still has those, because I would love to have them, because that was the best Star Wars. When Lucas changed it and added a bunch of stuff till it ruined it. We're not going to go there, though. I digress. But I can remember where I was and what I was doing. I remember my sister Danielle. She actually popped popcorn with we had kernels, so she did it with like the stove and popped them on the stove, which is something we normally wouldn't do. We usually use store-bought popcorn, but for some reason we had the kernels, and she melted the butter and did all that stuff. And I remember it being really good. And I remember it's all going downstairs to the basement and watching Star Wars. And we only watched one movie a week. We watched the first one like a Friday or Saturday, and then the next Friday or Saturday we watched the second one, and then the next one. And I remember after watching A New Hope, I could not wait to go and watch the next movie. I was hooked as a kid. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Star Wars is awesome. And so I've always been a pretty big fan. And so when these new shows release, I get excited. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. You know, I like Obi-Wan's character. I like Ewan McGregor. I thought he did a really good job in the prequels. You know, a lot of people give Hayden Christensen a lot of crap. He wasn't that bad in the prequels, especially compared to what we see now. We can go back to the prequels and appreciate them for what they are. But anyway, so I get excited. So that first episode, when you're watching that episode, there's a sense of like excitement, and really it doesn't matter because it's Star Wars and they can put anything up there and I'm just going to enjoy it. And for the most part, the first episode was a lot like that, but it was very short-lived, because as I was watching the first episode, I began to get concerned, because as we have seen with a lot of these Star Wars shows, like Book of Boba Fett, even The Mandalorian to a certain extent, we start to see a lot of fluff, but not a lot of substance. There's a lot of filler, but not a lot of substance. And what I mean by that is, like with episode 1, you start to see a lot of scenes that are repetitive, a lot of, you know, Obi-Wan's character just kind of riding around, and he's just working at this little meat, you know, farm thing. And he's, you know, and it's just the same scenes over and over. And we get it. Like, he's got a very monotonous life. He's clearly upset. He's in a weird state of mind, but a lot of the first episode is him just kind of wandering around. And, you know, there's a place for that when you're filming something, because you're trying to tell the story. And you can do that, I think, a little bit more efficiently than what they're doing with these episodes. Because keep in mind, it's okay to add a little bit more fluff in a movie, right? A movie's 2 hours long, 3 hours, sometimes almost 3 hours long these days. These, you know, you can have a little bit more time to tell the story, but with a 35-minute show, you don't really have a whole lot of time to get the point across, or if it's very easy to kind of overdo it. And I felt like that was a big case with the Book of Boba Fett, where we just kind of had a lot of episodes where Boba Fett was just kind of standing around and there wasn't a whole lot going on, and there was a lot of kind of pointless dialogue. That started to ring true again with the first episode of this show, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I was a bit worried. I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, I get it. He's riding around on this little creature thing, and it is what it is. You know, let's move on to something more interesting. You know, I understand he has a life he's living. It's very repetitive. He goes to work every day. He comes home, lives in his cave, wakes up, goes back to work, does it all over again. I can kind of put those two together. I don't need 35 minutes really of an episode to do that. So that was my first concern. Like, is this show going to be very similar to Boba Fett, where there's not a lot of substance, just a lot of fluff? So far, with the second episode and third and fourth, that hasn't quite been the case. It's gotten a lot better. In fact, it's picked up quite a bit. It's certainly not like the Book of Boba Fett in terms of the slower pace and the kind of fluff and pomp and circumstance of there's not a lot of development going on in terms of, like, we're putting all these pieces in place so we can get to this other part of the story. So we're building you up to get to this point. Well, the problem with the Book of Boba Fett is it took 7 episodes to get to the point when it didn't need to do that. They could have much more efficiently and effectively told that story in a different way. But I won't get into that too much. So far, Obi-Wan Kenobi show is moving at a decent pace. The first episode is a little bit too much fluff for me, but that's okay. So it's picking its pace up. So that's a good thing. Some of the things that I would say is the biggest problem so far with this show. I don't think the acting is bad. I think the acting is really good. I think Moses Ingram's character, she's getting a lot of flack on the internet. Actually, probably not as much flack as you would want to believe she is. Disney started a campaign, really not long after the drop of episode 1 and 2 to kind of go on the defense for Moses Ingram's character, chastising the toxicity of the fan base and the racist fans. There will be no place for racist and toxic fans in the Star Wars universe. We will resist. You can go and look at that tweet from the Disney, Star Wars Disney Twitter account. Look, if there's anybody who's racist or just being toxic for the sake of being toxic, there's no place for them. And I think everybody would agree with that. I'm sure the Star Wars fan base, including myself, me not being a diehard fan to the point where I know the canon to the T and all that, and I dress up and go to conferences, but nonetheless, those people are not toxic either. And I'm sure that they would not approve of the racism or any racist comments that would go towards the character of a minority character in Star Wars, period. And so far, we haven't seen anything. There's been no examples of people giving her or sending her any kind of toxic comments. Now, there has been critiques and critical opinions of her character and a lot of critical opinions of the show, but it's not necessarily toxic. I think it comes from the right place, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that sort of criticism. And if you're going to be an actor, or if you're going to produce movies or direct movies, or be an executive producer, or whatever it may be, you need to understand that this is you're going to get feedback and you're going to get criticism. And Disney is on the hot seat with Star Wars because Disney has not done a very good job with the Star Wars franchise. In fact, for the most part, they've done a pretty atrocious job with the Star Wars universe. They certainly completely messed up the sequels, the trilogy, the new trilogy. That was unbelievably terrible. I wish we could erase it from our minds. It makes the prequels look like the original first 3 movies. It's that bad. And the TV shows, for the most part, haven't been very good either. All the spin-off movies have not been good. The best movie so far that Star Wars has come out with recently is Rogue One. Rogue One was a fantastic movie. And The Mandalorian, in my opinion, is a pretty darn good show as well. It's holding true. There will be a 3rd season of that coming up soon, so I'm excited about that. The Mandalorian, it seems to me where Disney thrives, especially with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, where they thrive is when they produce a show based off of no existing character. The Mandalorian was a created character in the Star Wars universe, and it does really well because it gives them the freedom to make this character what they want it to be. When we hear about Obi-Wan Kenobi getting a TV show, we have pre-existing notions of who Kenobi is, what his character is like, how he would act, or what he should be like in this stage, because there's a lot of people who are big fans of the show. And so if it doesn't meet those expectations, there's going to be some serious critiques. And you should expect that. You shouldn't be like, oh, you're toxic because you don't like my show. Get the hell out of here. You know what you're doing. Okay. You're Disney. And you know that there are certain things that you can get away with. And you should know that you're not going to be able to get away with it all, and people are going to call you out. So I don't know if there's actually any real problem going on with Moses Ingram, but I will say her character is an interesting character. So she obviously showed up in episode 1. It feels, again, this is a concern for me. So I just want everybody to know that this is a kind of first thoughts on Kenobi. This isn't my final thoughts on Kenobi, because obviously there's still more episodes for us to watch, so we don't know what the finale is going to be like or where where it's going. But so these are my first thoughts. My concern with the character Reva is we know that she's one of the younglings from the Jedi Temple that was destroyed in Episode 3. She obviously has a bone to pick with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Not entirely sure as to why, because, you know, in the first episode, you see these kids kind of hiding out as the Jedi are trying to fight off the clone troopers. And then you see them run, like, we got to get out of here, and they run away. And that's really all we know about these characters. Now, here's the thing. It's very likely that some of the other kids escape too, and maybe their characters will show up later on. Be interesting to see that. But Reva's character is very bitter, and she's joined the Inquisitors, which is a Jedi hunting organization. They hunt down Jedi and kill them. And she just has it out for him. There's no real reason in my mind as to why yet. It hasn't been described. But what I'm concerned about with this character, and I can see it going down this path, which it'll be absolutely absurd if it does, but I know Disney, and I have a feeling what we're going to see, you know, Reva's character is bad. She's a Sith. She's an Inquisitor. She's killed Jedi. She kills people. I mean, she cut a woman's hand off for no reason in Episode 1. She's not a very good person, okay? We can all agree to that. Nothing against the actress. She's doing a great job playing a bad guy, you know? And so far, I think she's done a good job with that. I have really no beef with her character. I will say that I think it draws maybe too much away from Kenobi and the story between Kenobi and Anakin. I think it's pulling away too much of that. And there's a few scenes where I'm kind of like, and I'll get to that here in a minute. But what I'm concerned about with her character is that there's going to be an arc here where she has a change of heart. Something is going to happen. She is going to either save Obi-Wan Kenobi, or maybe she saves Leia, or maybe they'll finally bring Luke Skywalker into this story and she finds him, and I don't know. But for some reason, I just have a weird feeling that she's going to have a sudden change of heart and come back to the light side towards the end of this. And I think it's going to be really cheesy, really poorly done. And honestly, I think it's going to undermine the character of Kenobi, which is my biggest problem with this show so far. Is it does not feel like a show about Kenobi. It feels more like a show about Leia Organa and Reva. It feels more about them and less about Kenobi. And I also feel like the way they've written this show is it really undermines the character of Obi-Wan. I mean, who is Obi-Wan? Well, Obi-Wan was a great general in the Clone Wars. So he was a strong and powerful Jedi, very well crafted, well trained in the Jedi forces. So he was no pushover. There's no doubt about that. He was excellent with his lightsaber. He had all the Force mind tricks, blah, blah, blah. And so, but in this show, he has none of that. Now, I've heard the excuses, and I understand the excuses coming from the fans. The fans say, well, you know, he's in tremendous amount of pain, and he's in a state of depression because he lost his friend Anakin. So, because at this point with Episode 1, he thinks Anakin's dead. He doesn't know Anakin's turned into Darth Vader, which is strange to me. Again, that in and of itself is weird, that you've been on Tatooine for 10 years and you had no idea about Darth Vader and who he was, and he wasn't Anakin. That seems very, very strange to me. The timelines are all messed up. It's poking holes in the plot. It makes you scratch your head. And that's, again, the biggest problem with this show is the writing. The biggest problem with this show is the writing. The writing has been a problem for Star Wars for so long, since Disney's taken over. And it was a huge problem with Boba Fett because there just was no writing in Boba Fett. It was like they had a bunch of ideas on a pegboard and they just threw darts at it and said, yeah, there's Episode 1. There was no cohesive path going through it. It just didn't make sense. It was bad. Certainly. And so as I'm watching this show, and I'm just like, man, this doesn't make sense. Okay, so Obi-Wan was very weak with the Force. He buried his lightsaber in the middle of a desert, which again does not make sense. It goes against his character. It goes against the whole reason why he is on Tatooine to begin with. Let's remember, okay, I understand he's in a state of depression, but it's been 10 years. And I understand that you can be upset about a situation. We've all been upset. We've lost somebody we loved. We've made mistakes. We've hurt people. We're humans. And we've been in situations that hurt us. And I mean, heck, when I lost my job, when I was fired from my job when I first got out of the Marine Corps, that was a huge blow to me, and I didn't quite know how to bounce back and get my rhythm back. But I eventually found my way. You have to. And again, this goes against Obi-Wan's character. Obi-Wan was sent to Tatooine for a reason. He was sent there to protect Luke Skywalker. Okay? That's his job. His job is to protect Luke, not Leia. That was Leia's adopted dad's job. His job is to protect Leia, not Obi-Wan, which makes episode 1 even more ironic because this guy is supposed to protect Leia. He fails to do that and then comes and takes Obi-Wan off of what he's supposed to be doing to go get Leia. So now there's nobody protecting Luke. But again, this is Star Wars, and according to Star Wars, Luke Skywalker is not that important. And again, that doesn't make sense. I know I'm chasing some rabbits here, so stay with me. Luke Skywalker is the face of Star Wars. He is the main character. He is the protagonist. Leia is not the main. She is not that important in all of this. But for some reason, Disney has now told us that the Force is female, and now all female characters must be the focal point of the show, and all male characters need to take a back seat. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. Luke is non-existent in the show, which makes, again, no sense. Leia is one of the main characters of the show. They're focused very heavily on her character, which again is strange because Obi-Wan Kenobi is supposed to be on Tatooine protecting Luke, but now he's flying around space chasing after Leia, and it just seems strange. Anyway, Obi-Wan's character has lost most of his ability to use the Force. He has forgotten how to do it. He doesn't have his lightsaber. He buried it. This goes against his character. He was a strong Jedi. Yes, he was upset. He was in distress about what had happened after episode 3. And it makes perfect sense that he would be upset and maybe even in a state of deep depression over losing his friend Anakin and Padme. But I don't believe for a minute that he would bury his lightsaber in a desert because, after all, lightsaber is a Jedi's main tool. It's their greatest weapon. He would need that to protect Luke Skywalker. In theory, he's there to protect them from the Sith, the Empire. This is his job. How is he supposed to do that without his lightsaber? And then on top of that, his charge from Yoda was to go and continue his training, and that Yoda had some training for him to do so he could speak to his master, Qui-Gon, which he somehow in 10 years has still not figured out how to contact Qui-Gon Jinn. I'm sure there will be a moment where he pops up towards the end of the season, and it'll be like a moment. Everybody will clap and cheer and laugh and feel really good for about 2 minutes, and then they'll realize, oh my gosh, this show's really just all over the place and bad. Nonetheless, Obi-Wan Kenobi's character is weak. Jimmy Smits, by the way, is Leia's, who's the guy who plays Senator Bail Organa. Sorry about that, guys. He plays Leia's father. Obi-Wan, I would have expected him to continue his training to some degree. I could understand if he's kind of sad or depressed. I could even understand that his lightsaber skills have maybe decreased because he hasn't had a chance to use his lightsaber. You could write it in such a way where he hasn't had to use the Force as much, or he hasn't used his lightsaber at all, so maybe he's a little rusty. So when he goes up against Vader, which he does in episode 3, you could understand why Vader might be a little bit better than he is in terms of wielding a lightsaber. So there's that works itself out. But to be like completely cut off to the point where he just doesn't even know how to work it anymore. It's like, no, that's not, how is that even possible? I want you to think about what you do for a living. Maybe you're a doctor, maybe you're a tradesman, maybe you're a carpenter or a plumber or an electrician. Think about what you do for a living. You do it every day, right? Monday through Friday, maybe even on the weekends. Or maybe your job is minuscule and you just cook hamburgers for a living and you're, whatever. But nonetheless, whatever you do, the hobby or work, you do it all the time. You almost know it like the back of your hand. If you're a tradesman, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have dedicated your life to this skill. So if it's an electrician or a plumber or whatever, it's just seared into your head how to do your job. You know the codes, you know how to run pipe, you know exactly what everything calls for, the schedules, blah, blah, blah. Now, picture yourself stepping away from your trade and not doing it anymore. Now, you'll probably fix stuff around your house, right? But here's the thing. You're not going to completely forget everything you've known about plumbing. You may forget some things, but for the most part, you're going to remember it. And then if, let's say 5-10 years from when you stop doing it, let's say, you know what? I'm going to go back into plumbing again. So you open up a plumbing business. I'm just using that as an example. You're probably going to be a lot slower than you used to be. It's going to take you a little bit longer to do jobs because you got to get back in the swing of things. And you got to kind of recharge that part of your brain. Go, oh yeah, it's this. But for the most part, you still remember most of everything you know. See, Obi-Wan's character doesn't seem to remember anything. In the 10 years that he spent on Tatooine, he's completely forgotten how to be a Jedi. And not only that, they've turned him into old Luke Skywalker, which is he's just a sad, pathetic old man, wasting away on Tatooine, hiding away from everybody. And it's the same story with Disney with these characters. They are destroying the characters that we love. It's really, I'm surprised that Ewan McGregor allowed this to happen. But again, Ewan McGregor he's a man, and he doesn't have a lot of say in this. Kathleen Kennedy and the higher ups at Disney, I'm sure, are doing this on purpose. I'm sorry, but it comes back to the whole, the Force is female, and you cannot have a strong male character anymore in the Star Wars universe. All the men, especially the Jedi men, all the men are either a joke, like Haja's character, he's just a comedian. And then you have Ewan McGregor, who's just a feeble, weak old Jedi who's washed up, who doesn't even remember how to use his Jedi's abilities. Sung Kang, the fifth brother, he just hates Reva, and he's just kind of gets pushed around by her and is bitter about it. Jimmy Smits is useless. So these characters are all just kind of weak men, and they're kind of goofy or dumb. But what about Reva? She's a strong Sith Lord, like Sith Inquisitor. She's you've got of course Indira Varma's character. She's pulling Ewan McGregor out of the fire, or whatever, not out of the fire, but saving him and rescuing him. And then of course Leia Organa's character. She's a 10-year-old girl, and she's leading around Obi-Wan Kenobi like a buffoon. And or at least that's how it comes across, especially in episode 2. It just felt like, geez, man, like Leia is this intelligent, strong female character, and here's Obi-Wan being a weak, feeble old man again, being led around. It felt a little bit like Luke Skywalker and Rey. Rey's this, Mary Sue strong character, and she's trying to convince, Luke Skywalker, like, oh no, the Jedi are good. It's all good. Come back. And Luke's just like, get off my island. I mean, for crying out loud, he threw his lightsaber off the side of a cliff. I mean, what Jedi would do that? Especially Luke Skywalker. It goes against his character. Disney is destroying these characters for the sake of nothing else than what I can imagine would be. They really, really want to push the strong female character. I don't have anything against a strong female character in any show or any movie, but it has to make sense. Now, after all, this show is about Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's not about Reva. It's not about Leia. It's not about any of that. It's supposed to be about Obi-Wan. But so far, the two main strong, competent characters are Reva and Leia, and not Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is just useless. And it just comes across as if it's intentional. And I hate it. If it were me writing this show, Obi-Wan Kenobi certainly would be a little bit rusty as a Jedi, but he would not be completely inept. He would be, if anything, his lightsaber abilities would be probably the only thing that I could see would be affecting him. In episode 1, I would have had him in his cave, meditating, floating, rocks all around him. I would have had him training his mind. But you know what? You can still write in the sorrow and the sadness and the depression, and you can have that play a part on his abilities to to live a life, or to be a strong Jedi. I don't know, but it wouldn't be this bad. And it's kind of pathetic. The meeting between Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi in episode 3 was stupid. It was poorly written. Ewan McGregor ends up running away from Darth Vader when they meet for the face to face. It's like, really? Again, that's similar to the opening of The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, where he throws the lightsaber off the cliff. It's like you had this big lead up at the end of episode 7, and everyone's like, oh man, this is so cool. She just met up with Luke. And then Luke just tosses a lightsaber. It's like, what the hell? Who wrote this? And so, again, the lightsaber battle between Obi-Wan and Vader, that wasn't like the opening part of that was horrible. The actual fight where he's just kind of defending and getting his butt kicked by Vader is fine, because that would make sense, because Vader's still going around using his Force abilities and staying up to par. But Kenobi's, he's hiding in the cave, so he's going to be rusty. And then there's the fact that Leia Organa is the main character of this show. I want to kind of dial over to there. Leia should not be in this series. I'm just going to throw that out there. When you really think about Kenobi's story, which, first of all, there really shouldn't even be a Kenobi series. Again, this really just kind of feels like Disney just trying to milk the Star Wars teat for all it's worth. But since we're here and we're doing it, what is Kenobi's story? Well, Kenobi went to Tatooine and protected Luke Skywalker. So far, we have had 2 seconds of Luke Skywalker. Leia is the main character, second to Obi-Wan Kenobi here, and it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to why she's even in the story, but yet here we are. And there's just this heavy interaction. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, Obi-Wan is with Leia, who's protecting Luke. And so I have to think that maybe Reva goes after Luke Skywalker, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen, because now at the end of episode 4, she's put a tracker on Leia's little droid, and she knows exactly where Leia's going. So she's not out of the woods yet, but there's one prediction I made after episode 2, which is Reva is going to have conflict with Vader. She's going to try to get Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan will manage to escape, and then Vader will force choke her and say he's displeased. And guess what? That happened in episode 4. It's laughable. It's a very predictable show. We can see where it's going. At some point, more than likely, either Reva's going to sacrifice herself and save Obi-Wan, or she's going to save Obi-Wan without sacrificing herself, because it's whatever. But somewhere she's going to arc into a good character, and we're all going to clap for her and cheer, even though she's been an awful human being and she's cut off people's hands and killed people. As far as I'm concerned, you can't come back from that. But yeah, so with episode 4, episode 4 is, I will say this, it's the better of the 4 episodes. Episode 3 was terrible. Episode 2 was not very good. Episode 2 was frustrating because, again, Leia's running around and adults can't seem to catch her, and even Reva's hopping over buildings like a dang superhero and still can't get to Obi-Wan and Kenobi. Which we see in episode 4 too, is that Obi-Wan Kenobi barely escapes Reva's capture once again. She's standing there with her lightsaber as the ship takes off, and she just stands there and lets them go. The action scenes are silly. Episode 3, especially with the oh man, when the laser gate that Obi-Wan could have literally just walked around, but instead he's trying to figure out how to open it to go through it and shoots it. Yeah, it would make sense if he was going to drive the vehicle through it and commandeer it and take it, but he doesn't. They just walk through it. He could have just went around. I mean, the camera itself panned out and showed that you could walk around it. And so, again, it comes back to the writing. And episode 4 is very similar. Episode 4, it starts off with Obi-Wan in a Bacta tank being regenerated. He's kind of having a moment with Vader. And so he is desperate to go rescue Leia on the Inquisitor's base, and they manage to get in. I love the security protocol of the Empire, by the way, because Indira Varma's character, literally, she just flies her ship inside, gets off, walks off. Nobody greets her. Nobody checks her credentials. And she's able to go all the way inside of this building and sit down at a computer and just start going through it. Now, I get it. Like, once she's in there, she passes through security because she has the credentials. But the fact that you can just bring your ship into this building and land it, there's no air traffic control, there's no security to greet you to verify that, hey, this ship has, in fact, an Empire officer on it, or a pilot, not like, I don't know, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so Obi-Wan obviously wasn't on that aircraft. He was floating through the ocean and just managed to be able to be let into a hatch, and he was luckily enough nearby to get in. So the security at this facility is a joke, and okay, whatever. It is what it is. That's kind of always been the laughing joke for me with Star Wars, is that people can there's no security cameras, there's no sensors, there's nothing to trap you into a corridor. It seems like everyone can just kind of freely move about unknowingly, or not being seen. And again, this show, the problem with episode 4 is it's impeccable timing for everything. Now, there are rules, in my opinion, to filmmaking. You can have, what's the word I'm looking for? Coincidences, or for lack of a better word or term, just, perfect timing. It's kind of like somebody walks in the room at just the right time and it stops something from happening. You know what I mean? And, it just, in any other world, if that person didn't walk into that room, whatever was going on in that room would have happened, so it was just that perfect timing, And you can use that to get away with certain things, but you can also overdo it. And again, Star Wars has been a problem with that. They don't have good writers on working for Star Wars. And again, as I was watching the show, I had not looked at who wrote this show or who really directed it. I wasn't paying attention to it. And I started to think maybe Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have overstayed their welcome. And then I realized they have absolutely nothing to do with the show. In fact, the only familiar name I see is the director, which is Deborah Chow, and one of the producers, which is Kathleen Kennedy. Yes, it all comes back. I don't recognize the writer, but I will tell you, it's not very good. And it's a lot of lazy writing. Okay, it's a lot of coincidences and just cheap ways of getting out of situations because you can't write something better. The end of episode 4 is a perfect example of that. They're in the hangar, they're at a standoff. All these stormtroopers are pointing guns at Obi-Wan, Leia, and Indira's character. And also Reva's there with her lightsaber out. She's ready to take him down. All things considered, at the very least, you're looking for a big showdown. Obi-Wan's going to have to pull out some tricks to protect those people. But magically, out of nowhere, for no reason, there's no explanation as to why they showed up to get them off of this place. But they just managed to show up with snow speeders at the right time and started blasting everybody in the hangar. It was like, oh, wow, what perfect timing. Had you two not showed up in your snow speeders, it's likely Obi-Wan and Kenobi would have been toast. Or maybe not. Maybe you could have written it better than that. And it was just a very lazy way of getting them out of that situation. It's the same thing with Leia being tied to a torture chair and someone walking into the room and pulling Reva's character out of the room at the very moment she's about to get hit with these, whatever they are. I guess they're electrical shocks or something. Again, that's almost forgivable. Okay, I can forgive it. But when you do it again, there's a lot of these like, oh, just so happens this happened and got me out of that. It comes back to being lazy. And it's an eye-rolling moment. And then you have to ask yourself, Reva could have stopped them at any time. The problem that Star Wars today has is Star Wars, and honestly, this has been a problem for Star Wars all the time, is that, well, Jedis and Sith have the ability to use the Force. They can read your mind, apparently now. They can pick you up and set you down. They can break your neck. They can choke you, Force choke you. They can do all kinds of crazy stuff to you. Reva, in all actuality, could have grabbed Leia with the Force and pulled her to her and prevented them from leaving the hangar. And that would have been actually quite interesting. But again, that doesn't happen. Reva just kind of slowly runs over. By the way, nobody can run fast in this show, except for Leia. Apparently, Leia is just quick, even though it doesn't appear that she's very fast. But she's capable of outrunning humans all day long. Humans are not capable of catching each other at all. And it's kind of like, you just kind of rub your head and go, this is painful. Like, dude, just pick up the speed. You're 5 feet from them. Like, you could dive, and you could catch them. But no, alas. So episode 4 started off really good, but kind of ended poorly. I thought the lightsaber work for Reva's character at the end was kind of, this is how stupid, the damn snowspeeder pulls up to her, hovers in place, and shoots at her. It shoots at her. If my voice sounded funny there for a minute, it's because I look down, I'm rubbing my head because I'm in frustration. And this dude is like hovered 10 feet from her with the snowspeeder, and he's shooting the character Reva, and she's blocking it with her lightsaber. Her lightsaber movements are so slow looking. They don't look very fluid, especially in conjunction with a snowspeeder that's firing blasters at a very fast rate. So to the eye, it looks funny. So it was a poorly shot scene. The CGI of that scene was really bad. You just have the snowspeeder just kind of floating there, staring right at her. In theory, she could have directed the blast right back at him and blew him up, but she didn't. It just kind of blocks it. He ends up getting blown to pieces by, I guess, some sort of explosive device that the fifth brother, Sung Kang's character, sends at him and blows him up. And then he dies, and everyone's sad, but nobody's sad because we don't know who this character was. We don't care. There was no character development. He's just dead. So it's like, oh, everyone's like sitting there in sorrow. I was like, yeah, but I cannot relate in this moment. I can't feel any emotion because I didn't even really know who that character was. There was no character development. So the scene falls flat. Again, it comes back to poor writing. The biggest problem with Obi-Wan Kenobi is the writing. It's not well written. There's too many loopholes and near misses and coincidences. They've completely ruined the character as far as I'm concerned. I'm really hoping it gets better. Obi-Wan's Force abilities have gotten better since the beginning. He's starting to use his lightsaber now. Even though, again, at the end of episode 4, as he's escaping the hangar, what is he using to get himself out is a blaster. He's not using his lightsaber. That doesn't make any sense. If you're being shot at from all different angles as a Jedi, you would think you'd want to have your lightsaber out so you're blocking these shots. So again, it feels like someone who's never watched Star Wars, doesn't know anything about Star Wars, doesn't care about Star Wars, wrote this show and just used these characters from old episodes and was like, yeah, I really don't care about plot holes, don't care about canon, don't care about anything. I'm just going to write it the way I want. And oh, by the way, I'm a really terrible writer and probably got this job because either I'm a woman or some other reason. But it's not because I have the talent. There is a lack of writing talent at Disney, and I don't really quite know why. Joby Harold is the writer for this show, and I have nothing against him. I'll check his IMDb real quick and just see what has he worked on. He's known for Obi-Wan Kenobi, Edge of Tomorrow, and John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, which is fascinating. Which, by the way, in my opinion, John Wick Chapter 3 was not the best of the John Wicks, but still not a bad one. It's pretty good. So he's got some legs. Transformers, ugh. Rise of the Machines, ugh. Okay. So he's got a few misses, and he's got one hit as far as I'm concerned, which is John Wick. But even all considering what John Wick is, it's like it's not Saving Private Ryan by any means. So he's got some legs. but not really. So again, it's a weird grab for this show. I'm trying to see through his IMDb what he's done. I Am Legend reboot. It's been announced. Oh, okay. Untitled Jennifer Aniston, Sophie Goddard project. These are all pre-production, backwards pre-production. Kenobi spinning out TV series. 10 episodes. John Wick. Robin Hood. Which Robin Hood? Wait a minute. 2018 Robin Hood, which is. Ooh, I didn't see this one. It's got Jamie Foxx and see, this is like direct to DVD stuff. But I mean, I get it. You know, here's the thing. Everybody's got to My Blind Brother, Edge of Tomorrow. So in terms of writing, he's done the Flash story by, it's been post-production for 2023. Transformers, Rise of the Beast, because we need another Transformers movie, like we need a heart attack. That's coming in 2023. King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, Awake, Army of the Dead, 2021. Oh, yeah, that one got mixed reviews, but not very good. Again, 5 out of 10, IMDb rating, not good. So I don't know. Maybe they got him on the cheap, but I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it's not very good. It's poorly written. It's flimsy. It's got holes in it. It's just not well done. And so you get frustrated. You go, this is Disney. You're Disney. You're not supposed to be producing this stuff. But I think Disney has... Something happened. There was a time when we were kids where Disney had only one goal in mind, which was to provide quality, magical entertainment, right? And not only just quality storytelling and magical entertainment, as I just said, but they were always kind of breaking down the barriers in terms of like technology and the things that they were doing, the way they made the cartoons and the way they made shows and movies, and then they had Pixar. And so it was all real magical and it was really well done. And even the worst Disney cartoon back in the day was still really, really good. Lion King, Cinderella, Snow White, you name it. The Little Mermaid, the 101 Dalmatians, all great. But today it feels so much like they've lost the magic, for lack of a better term. Disney has become this corporate mega giant just interested in making the money, which again, I have nothing against these companies making money. I get it. I have no concern or problem with Disney buying up production studios. I had no problem with Disney buying Star Wars, because I thought when Disney bought Star Wars, oh, this is great because everything Disney does is gold. That's what we used to say. Everything Disney touches turns to gold because they had the best people and the biggest budgets, and they can make anything they wanted to make and do whatever they wanted to do, and nobody could tell them no. But the problem today is they're not doing that. Their execution has been really bad. Star Wars, for whatever reason, has been a problem child for Disney for the longest time, since its beginning. They had an issue with the trilogy. They had an issue keeping directors and writers on board and changing the scripts and going all over the place with the new trilogy. They had issues with Star Wars Stories, which was supposed to be the side movies, the Rogue One, Solo. Again, Rogue One was fine, but Solo was such a catastrophe with changing the producers and directors halfway through. It's like watching 3 different movies. It could have been really, really great, but the problem is they couldn't stay on point. Somebody at the top keeps making mistakes. Somebody at the top is hiring the wrong people, doesn't trust the right people, isn't trusting the process, and keeps changing things. The only person that I can think of that is Kathleen Kennedy. It always comes back to Kathleen Kennedy, and I will continue to blame her, because until she leaves Star Wars and Star Wars starts to get better, Or if Star Wars stays the same and it just continues to suck, well, then maybe it wasn't her fault. But I'm continuing to say that Kathleen Kennedy is a problem. Kathleen Kennedy is woke. She has admitted it. She wants to essentially, she doesn't like the toxic masculinity around Star Wars, which I don't even know what that means. She's tired of the male-dominated fan base, which is silly because growing up, I knew a lot of girls that liked Star Wars. Probably not as much as I did, but nonetheless, they liked it. They could appreciate it. They'd watch it. But not so much anymore. Now it's like we got to make sure we're building these characters, strong female characters, so that women, when they go and watch Star Wars, they have a character to relate to. But the problem is that you're making these characters so unrelatable. Rey was a Mary Sue. She was not relatable. There was no struggle with Rey. She just naturally was the best in everything, and everyone loved her. It was not interesting. And the reality of it is that aside from the girls who just wanted to dress up and be Rey as cosplay, it probably didn't resonate very well with very many women. Because the reality is that women struggle through their day-to-day life just like men do. A man like me who watches these movies can appreciate a good, strong male character who overcomes circumstances, who's not, all-knowing and all-powerful, who has to develop and get better and struggles and fights off an enemy or has moments of weakness, but pulls himself up from his bootstraps and gets it going. He's not just some frivolous, weak character who's got to be tugged along by somebody else. I would imagine that a female who will psychologically enjoy a good character, female character, wants the same thing. They want to see something that they can relate to. Nobody can relate to Rey because Rey was like a nobody who just became everything overnight. And there was no struggle. She learned force abilities that were profoundly stronger than anything Luke had ever learned in the original trilogy. And she did it without anybody training her. She just naturally had it happen. Again, which is the writing, it allowed her to get out of circumstances that normally she would not have been able to get out of. So it's just lazy writing. But no, she's just really strong with the Force. And she just is now realizing it's like, doesn't even make sense. But I digress. Obi-Wan Kenobi has the potential to be a really great show, and it could finish strong. And one of the ways I think it could finish strong is they need to stop making Obi-Wan a weak character, which it looks like they're starting to get him kind of back to his old ways. He's starting to use the Force again. Reva needs to be just slashed in half. There needs to be like an epic battle between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Reva, and she cannot possibly come back from her bad actions. She could potentially like help Obi-Wan, but for her to be like a Jedi again or to become like this hero, no. She needs to be the anti-hero villain and remain there. She could sacrifice herself maybe, but nonetheless, I just don't see that working out well. It's too predictable right now. They're really setting her up to be the hero of this whole show, which again is silly because it's a show about Kenobi. But nonetheless, that is where we are. I know I probably have missed a lot. I know I've probably not touched on everything with this show, but I think I hit most of the points that I wanted to hit. The biggest thing is the writing. It's bad. Not Boba Fett bad, but in its own way, pretty bad. It's very typical of what we find from Disney. Weak male characters, very strong female characters to the point where it's not really believable. Or it's just so unbalanced. It doesn't cooperate well within the writing, and it leads to a very poor story. These characters are all supposed to complement each other. Vader complements Luke. Vader complements Obi-Wan Kenobi. They are protagonists, antagonists, but they're not. There's no that we're not getting that here because you're forcing things on us that just don't really quite work, and then of course you're leaving a lot of plot holes and a lot of things that just go, wait, what? And you scratch your head and say, that's strange. But alas, that's where we are. I will continue to watch it. And, Star Wars is slated to release some other shows. Disney Star Wars release schedule. Let's just pull that up really quick. We know that there's going to be the Ahsoka, if I'm saying that correctly, show about her character. Let's see if IGN will show me what I'm looking for. Yes. So we got Obi-Wan Kenobi. Andor TV series is coming up. Andor's promising because, again, these shows where Disney Star Wars thrives, where they stop utilizing old characters and they create new ones. That's why I think Rogue One was so good, was because it followed along in the canon, it followed along in the universe, but these were all different characters. And it actually tied up some loose ends from episode 4, and it worked out. I will say that the main female character of Rogue One was, less than, she's not the best. She didn't have a whole lot of expression on her face. It was very much the same expression no matter the situation, but I could look past that. That's an acting problem. That's not a Disney problem. Tales of the Jedi animated series. The animated series might be good. I have not watched Bad Batch, but that's coming out. Mandalorian series in 3. Young Jedi Adventures. Star Wars Visions. Star Wars Ahsoka. That's probably going to be pretty good, I hope. Again, Ahsoka, this could land flat with a lot of the big fans of the Clone Wars show because, there's expectations there. So you need to, on these big name shows, like I can understand if you hire a writer who's only got 1 or 2 really big hits to his name to do, like Star Wars, The Bad Batch or something, But when you're using big name characters like Kenobi and you're going to make a show about Kenobi, you should probably hire on a writing staff that have some accolades to them, that have some background. I'm honestly surprised that Filoni and Favreau have nothing to do with Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that actually might be the problem. Although they're on thin ice with me because the Book of Boba Fett was like, what the hell? Which is why, like I said in the beginning of this, I'm like, maybe it's just time they need to go. Maybe they're not as good as we thought, but they had nothing to do with this one. So lucky for them, I suppose. There's a Lando TV series coming out. That could be really good. And that's another thing too, like this whole deep-rooted, racist, toxic fan base. It's like, where's the racism? Lando was one of the most favored characters of episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, when it aired. Decades ago, and he still continues to be a fan favorite. Like, where is this supposed racism coming from? It's so stupid. This one's going to be very cool. I'm very excited about this. So there's a Star Wars Rogue Squadron movie coming out. That could be really, really good. The Rogue Squadron story, if you're not familiar, is about basically the fighter pilots for the Rebel forces. So that could have some legs. That could be really good. That could be like a really cool, like a Maverick, Top Gun Maverick sort of feel to it. I have not seen Top Gun Maverick yet. I am going to go see that soon, and I plan to review it, and I'm excited to do that. I have heard nothing but good things about it, and I was pretty sure it was going to be a pretty badass film. The first one was great. I love the first one. The first one was probably one of the reasons why I wanted to join the military as a kid. When I saw Top Gun, I was like, heck yeah. I mean, it's just everything a man wants, right? Fighter jets, explosions, hot women. Here you go. Anyway, I digress. So as of right now, for me, Kenobi gets a 3 out of 5 stars. 1 thumb up, 1 thumb down. I agree. 58% average audience scores is pretty accurate. And I think, truth be told, the score, I think, will probably, it can get better. These episodes could get a lot better, but I feel like this show is following a very predictable path. And it's just kind of unfortunate because it could have been so much more. And again, we didn't ask for this. Kenobi didn't need a show, but you gave it to us. So if you're going to do it right. So far, you haven't done it right. Disney needs to hire new writers. Otherwise, I don't know. I'd like to say, like, we're going to stop watching them, but are we really going to stop watching them? But if you haven't watched it yet and you weren't sure if you wanted to, you may just kind of want to sit this one out. Or at least wait till all the episodes air so you can just watch it all in one day, get it out of the way. And then you can say, you know what? That was okay. It was worth, a few hours of my time. Or you may end up really loving it because honestly, what's interesting is in the comment threads to this stuff is it seems to be one or the other. You either really love Kenobi or you really hate it. The reasons why people love it, I think there's some woke. I think it's the woke family. this kind of, weak society we grow up in, which is, oh, Kenobi's great. He's just showing him struggling through his pain. He's not, you guys got to give him slack. He's going through so much. It's like, enough of this crap. We all go through pain. I want to see a character overcome it. I want to see him overcome his sadness and his pain. I want to see him do his job, for one. And we're not seeing that right now. Maybe that'll change. All I'm seeing is that another Luke Skywalker situation, like in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. I'm seeing a very similar situation happen with Kenobi. He's just going to be this feeble little man who's resentful towards the Jedi or something and just kind of is useless. That's so far what it seems. And it's very unfortunate because Kenobi is a really great character. And on that note, folks, that's it for me today. That was a good episode. I love doing movie reviews. If you like movie reviews, let me know. Hit me up on the comments section. Email me at davidking.therant@gmail.com. It doesn't have to be a long email. Just text, I hated your show. Or maybe you could just say, I loved your show. And I'll respond. Let me know how you like movie reviews. I like doing them. They're fun. I'm trying to get John back on, get some other people back on. We'll talk about that. And look forward to my Top Gun Maverick review. I'm excited to go see it. It's definitely going to be a theater movie. There are some movies you just have to see in theaters, and I think that's going to be one of them. I'll be back here hopefully the day after tomorrow with a new episode. Lots to talk about. Lots of craziness out there. You name it, politics, all the good stuff. Folks, thank you so much for listening, and have a good day.